You don't feel like you're losing your life. That's why it keeps happening. Because if it felt like loss, you'd fight it. If it felt like danger, you'd move. But what you're dealing with doesn't show up like a disaster. It shows up like a normal day. A day where you're busy, a day where you did a few things, a day where time somehow disappeared, but nothing actually changed. And then it's night again. You look back and you can't point to one big mistake. Nothing exploded, nothing collapsed. You just didn't get ahead. And you know what makes that heavier? You carried the whole day. You carried other people's expectations. You carried noise you didn't ask for. You carried urgency that wasn't yours. You carried stress like it was rent. And you paid it, again, without even getting a receipt. This is the part nobody teaches you. Most people don't fall behind because of one bad decision. They fall behind because of 1,000 small ones that don't feel like decisions. They're tiny permissions, tiny delays, tiny detours that feel earned. And together, they create an invisible tax, a daily tax on your focus, your energy, your confidence, your future. Not all at once, quietly. You pay it in minutes you can't find later. You pay it in half-finished plans. You pay it in, I'll do it tomorrow. You pay it in that tight feeling in your chest when you realize you're doing everything, except the thing that matters. And the worst part is you don't even notice the payment because it's disguised as life. It starts early, not with something dramatic, with something small that feels harmless. A quick check, a quick glance, a quick, let me see what I missed. And the moment you do that, your mind is no longer yours. Your attention is no longer private. Your day is no longer being built. It's being spent. From that second on, you're in response mode. You're reacting before you've decided who you want to be today. And reaction is heavy. Reaction is carrying a day you didn't design. You start the morning already behind because you let the world walk in first. A notification, a message, a headline, a small problem someone hands you like a baton. Then the mind does what it always does. It follows the last thing it touched. So your attention becomes public property. Your priorities become suggestions. Your goals become later. You tell yourself you'll get to the real work soon. After this, after that, after you catch up. But that's the trap, because catching up doesn't end. There is always more to check, more to respond to, more to scroll past, more to think about, more to handle. So you live inside maintenance mode. You fix small problems all day and call it productivity. And again, some of those things are real, some of them matter. But be honest, a lot of what fills your day isn't responsibility. It's friction avoidance. It's what you do when the next meaningful step feels too quiet, too hard, too exposing. Because the moment you sit down to build your life, you're forced to feel what you've been avoiding. That you're not where you want to be. That the gap is real. That the future is not guaranteed. So you reach for something lighter, something that doesn't demand anything from you, something that lets you feel busy without feeling vulnerable. That's the invisible tax. It doesn't just steal time, it steals identity. Every time you choose the smaller thing over the important thing, something shifts inside you. Not loudly, subtly. You start trusting yourself less. You start expecting less from yourself. You start managing your own potential like it's dangerous, like it might embarrass you again. So you lower the bar in your mind without admitting it. You aim for getting through the day. You aim for not falling apart. You aim for, I'll start next week. And then you wonder why you don't feel motivated. But motivation isn't the missing ingredient. Clarity isn't the missing ingredient. You already know what would change your life. Most people do. The issue is that your day is being taxed before it ever belongs to you. And the weight you're carrying? It's not just tasks. It's the hidden pressure of unfinished. It's the mental tab that never closes. It's the quiet shame of promises you keep pushing back. It's the dread of knowing you're capable of more and living below it anyway. That's why you can be exhausted and still feel behind. Because you weren't building, you were paying the tax, you were keeping the machine running, you were maintaining the current level, you were surviving a day. And survival doesn't create a future. It just delays the collapse. Let's name what this really is. It's not laziness. It's not lack of discipline. It's unprotected focus. Your life is built from what you protect. Not what you want, not what you talk about, what you protect. And right now, most people protect everything except the thing that matters most. The first part of the day, the first part of the mind, the first part of the self. So the world walks in, sits down, and starts making decisions in your house. You don't feel it as violence. You feel it as normal. And that's why it wins. Because when something is normal, you stop questioning it. When something is common, you stop resisting it. You start calling it how life is. But it's not how life is. It's how life becomes when you leave the door open. Here's the myth that keeps this going. If I had more time, I'd do the important things. No, you wouldn't. Not consistently. Because time isn't the problem. Access is the problem. You don't need more hours. You need ownership of the hours you already have. You need a portion of the day that is yours. Untouched, unclaimed, unruined by other people's urgency. Not because you're selfish, because you're building. And builders need protected space. They need quiet. They need repetition. They need structure. Not perfect mornings, protected mornings. Because if your first hour belongs to the world, your whole day becomes a reaction. And a reactive day can feel full while producing nothing meaningful. This is the invisible tax at its worst. You spend your best energy proving you're available, and then you try to build your future with leftovers. And the leftovers don't lift heavy dreams. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. The tax isn't forced on you. You agree to it, not with words, with behavior. You agree when you start the day with whatever is easiest to consume. You agree when you keep distractions within reach like comfort blankets. You agree when you let your first decisions be decided by relief. And the reason you agree is simple. Comfort feels like oxygen. Comfort says, just breathe. Comfort says, just a second. Comfort says, you deserve a break. But comfort has a price tag. And the bill comes later. It comes at night when you realize you didn't move. It comes at the end of the week when nothing changed. It comes when your goals start feeling fake because you keep proving they're not important enough to act on. And that's the most dangerous cost. Not time, not energy, self-trust. Because once you lose trust in yourself, everything becomes heavier. Plans feel pointless. Goals feel embarrassing. Hope feels like a setup. So you stop aiming big. You stop taking yourself seriously. And then you call it being realistic. But it's not realism. It's disappointment management. You're trying to protect yourself from your own potential. Because potential makes demands. Potential asks you to show up. Potential asks you to repeat the boring things. Potential asks you to become someone you can't become by accident. So you keep the door open to distraction because it gives you an excuse you can live with. That's just life. I'm busy. Something always comes up. I'll get serious soon. And then soon becomes a personality. Here's the reframe. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need to close the door. Not forever, just for a portion of the day. You need a protected block, small enough that you'll actually defend it, but meaningful enough that it changes your trajectory. Because when you protect the first part of your day, you're not just being productive. You're making a statement. You're telling yourself, I'm not available to be owned. That's what discipline really is. Not punishment, not intensity, boundaries. It's deciding that your life is not a public space, and it doesn't require motivation. It requires one small decision that you repeat. The first decision of the day becomes the steering wheel. If the first decision is consumption, your day becomes consumption. If the first decision is reaction, your day becomes reaction. If the first decision is creation, your day becomes creation. Creation doesn't always mean art. It means building something that didn't exist yesterday. A plan, a workout, a page, a skill, a difficult conversation you've avoided, a system, a habit, something that moves your life forward even if nobody claps, because the people who change aren't the ones who feel ready. They're the ones who build before the world touches them. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first, because the tax has been your routine. The tax has been your identity. The tax has been your excuse. So when you stop paying it, you feel exposed. You feel the silence. You feel the pull. You feel the itch to check, to scroll, to just see. That itch is not proof you need it. That itch is proof you trained yourself to avoid the moment where your life is actually yours. But if you can sit inside that moment just long enough to do one real thing, something begins to shift. Not your schedule, you. Because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you rebuild trust. And trust changes behavior without forcing it. When you trust yourself, you don't negotiate with the basics. You don't need drama to start. You don't need a new personality. You just do what you said. So here's the turning point. Stop trying to fix the whole day. Fix the first decision. Decide that the first block is protected. Decide that the first minutes are yours. Decide that you are not paying the tax today. And the moment you feel the pull, don't fight it like a hero. Redirect like a professional. One simple action that signals, we build first. Then the day can be noisy. The world can be demanding. People can call. Messages can pile up. But you already moved. And when you move early, you don't feel behind all day. You don't carry that invisible shame. You don't need to catch up to your own life. You're already in it. This is how progress actually happens, not through massive change, through tiny ownership. Because the future isn't stolen in one dramatic moment. It's taxed away. And the people who win aren't the ones who have perfect days. They're the ones who stop paying. So tomorrow, don't aim for a new life. Aim for a protected beginning. Because when your day starts with ownership, your life starts to follow. And weeks from now, you won't just feel busier, you'll feel lighter. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours to carry. You stopped donating your best hours to everything except your future. And that's when you finally start moving.